Hi and welcome. This video is for all of you out there that have very deep souls. Chances are you have an old soul. You are very deep. You don't do too well with small talk if you have arrived here. And you don't tend to fit in with the masses. This is for you. Do you feel like you have a hard time fitting into social environments? And do you feel like you just don't really belong anywhere? Um, I know it well. That's why I'm making the video. So those of you out there that are hikers or have any hiking experience, you'll be able to relate to this. Most people, whenever you go on any kind of a challenging hike anywhere, most people are in a 2 mile radius from the base location. So wherever the 2 miles within the starting point is where you will find the most dense crowds. When you start getting up in elevation and you start increasing level of difficulty on the hike, you get less and less people as you go. And I want to call your attention now to Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. How many people do you feel like really reach the summit of Mount Everest? So I did not look that exact figure up, but I will tell you very few people reach the top of Mount Everest. It requires extreme, extreme physical fitness. It requires a level of meeting the harshest of weather conditions, meeting your greatest challenge probably that you ever face in your lifetime, making it to the summit. It requires you to have oxygen while you are climbing when you get towards the summit. It requires you to have a guide that's going to help you get up there. And when you reach the summit, it's typically just the hiker and the Sherpa, which is the guide that has helped you to ascend to this degree. Very few people reach it. So when they reach the summit, do you feel like they have a lot of company up there? People to talk to, people to celebrate with, people to converse with? No, they don't. Even to reach a halfway point, it takes 40 to 60 days, I think, for an avid hiker to reach the summit. And that's somebody who has acclimated to the altitude. That is somebody that has trained properly before even taking on this feat. And even out of all of those people that begin the ascent, very few make it to the top. Very few reach the summit. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because it really does tie into this conversation of depth. And when you have a deep soul that yearns to explore and yearns to dive into the deeper aspects of existence and the deeper topics that most people kind of want to shy away from or avoid, it is the equivalent of you trying to climb a mountain and you wanting to reach the summit of the mountain. And I would be kidding myself if I didn't compare it also to the equivalent of rising, right, in consciousness, rising from the 3D to the 5D. And that rising towards the gods, towards the heavens. It's why my name my business is Rising North, right? You're rising. As you rise, less and less people rise with you. And it's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's because it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. The depths that you are going into are depths that a lot of people are uncomfortable in. So they kind of play in the shallow end of the pool instead, where it's easier. And there's a lot more there are a lot more people to interact with, and there's a lot more swimmers in the shallow end. Same thing with the national parks. There are a lot more people to converse with and talk to and make friends with, if you're in that couple mile radius of the base of the hike. Um, Now let's dive into the Sherpa. The Sherpa is the guide, right? They're typically males. I read a book a long time ago about Sherpas and how they become Sherpas in um in the Himalayas, and how they train for this job, right? Of taking people to the summit of Mount Everest. And they acclimate to very high altitudes. They are able to endure harsh conditions that most people, I mean, the most of the whole population of the entire world can't endure. So they are very hardy individuals. And they are responsible for the logistical side of the hike, right? So the hiker shows up, and the hiker needs to have a willingness and a drive and a fire and a determination and a set point of a strong physical fitness level. And once they arrive there, the Sherpa kind of takes over to take care of all the logistical parts. They guide, they carry equipment, they um their support system for the climber. So if you are, we're going to take this conversation one level further. If you are any kind of a healer, a guide, a teacher, a mentor in a spiritual capacity or otherwise, and even in a therapeutic sense, right? A therapist, a counselor, and you dive into the tougher, challenging parts of our psyches as human beings, a lot of people don't want to go there. They're just not comfortable going into those places and spaces. And so it kind of leads to a lonely existence, um, from one side of things. And from the other side of things, you're constantly in this ascension process of growing and becoming and evolving and transcending. um Sounds great in language, right? Sounds beautiful, but in actuality it's very challenging, and it requires you to be able to face harsh conditions. And part of those harsh conditions as you're ascending the mountain of life, so to speak, is recognizing that there won't be that many people. The higher you go and the higher you want to venture and the higher your spirit wants to soar and the more exploring you want to do in the higher realms, there are going to be less and less people for you to interact with, less and less places for you to feel like you actually belong, because your soul tribe are few and far between. Who are your soul tribe on this journey? Your soul tribe are the other climbers that wish to summit the mountain. They wish to conquer the mountain and they wish to get to the top, no matter what the cost is. It requires tenacity. It requires a giving up of comfortability, as far as I'm concerned. If you want to stay in the comfortable side of the stadium, right? If you want to stay in those comfortable seats, and you want to just sit there, drink a few beers, right? Hang out with everybody, shoot the shit for a while, and go home at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that. There's just nothing wrong with that at all, because there's plenty of our fellow inhabitants of this planet that love nothing more than zoning out and the small talk stuff, and you know as well as I do. If that is your journey, then by all means, keep going. If your journey is to ascend to the higher dimensions and the higher realms, then you come to a choice point, which is the purpose of this video. Because the Sherpas, the role models, the teachers, the guides for the climber, right? If you are any kind of teacher, mentor, guide, you are the Sherpa of life, right? You're helping people to elevate. In doing so, You have to continually be training your own body and your own soul to break through the conditioned patterns, to break through the limitations, the limiting beliefs, all of the negative self-talk, all of the junk that has accumulated in your psyche, layer by layer by layer, step by step by step, as you ascend. You are slowly breaking free. Even though it doesn't seem like it in the actual moment in your life where you actually are going through the challenges and meeting the adversity and meeting the loneliness and meeting these uncomfortable feelings. It's all part of the journey. It's part and parcel of the journey. You can't ever get to the top without this challenging yet essential, I want to say grit because that's the word really coming through strongly. It takes grit. It takes determination to not just lie down and just go back to what was easiest. I know for myself, um, it would just be so much easier to just go back, right? To turn around and go back down the mountain and just be on those more comfortable spaces, right? Where there's not a lot of depth and there's not a lot of challenge and adversity that you're facing in those lower spaces and places. It's not what your soul is. If you're still here on this particular video, your soul has called you to rise. It is part of your destiny within this earthly realm. So you're at a choice point. And there's always a choice. You can turn around and go back down the mountain the same way that you came, and you can live on the more comfortable levels of the mountain, which are the lower levels of the mountain. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with that. They're just closer to the bottom. They're closer to everybody else. They're closer to society. They're closer to the matrix. They're closer to the 3D existence that we all exist in here on the physical earth. Um, if you decide not to turn back and you decide to keep going, the higher you decide you want to go, the less people are going to be there as you ascend. The good part about this is if you do decide in this choice point that you are going to continue onward and upward, the people that are there are going to be worth 1,000 pounds of gold, each one of them, because they themselves are also in a place in their own existence, or else the two of you as souls would never be able to coexist with one another. So, yes, you're going to have less people. Yes, it's going to be a lot less crowded in your life. But the people that are there are going to be there on purpose, on purpose to support your destiny as you are supporting their destiny. So I hope this helped all the deep souls out there who may be struggling to fit in to this existence. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye.